This episode of Distraction is sponsored by Omega Bright CBD, formulated by Omega Bright Wellness, creators of the #1 omega-3 supplements for the past 20 years. Omega Bright CBD, safe, third-party tested, and it works. Shop online at omegabrightwellness.com. And by Landmark College, offering comprehensive support for students with ADHD and other learning differences. Learn more at lcdistraction.org. Landmark College, the college of choice for students who learn differently. Hello and welcome to Distraction. I'm your host, Dr. Ned Hallowell. Glad to be with you again. We're all aware of how much life has changed since this pandemic started. And with everyone staying at home more, there, of course, will be disagreements and conflicts in your household, particularly if you have kids. My guest today is here to help. Isn't that great? We always bring people in who can help. Her name is Katherine Winter-Sellery, and she's taught thousands of parents as well as executives about how to be better communicators. She joins me today to help us all maintain harmony in our homes and our relationships. Katherine, welcome to Distraction.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be with you today. It's great to be here.
So tell me, how did you get into this area of working with parents and their kids?
Yeah, I started, literally 30 years ago, more or less, close to 31 years ago. I'd studied Chinese and speak Chinese and was working as a commodities trader, running a firm in Hong Kong, trading commodities. And then I started having kids. And my husband is an architect. And
do you have ADD?
Do I not diagnosed?
I'll bet you do. Most commodities and your life story.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Anyway, so there you are, speaking Chinese, trading
I'm
commodities.
Sure there's so many undiagnosed out there. Oh my gosh.
Oh, totally. So there you are, speaking Chinese, trading commodities, and you started having children.
Yeah, and started having children. And we had a son. And here we were, very successful professionals who were complete deer in headlights when it came to oh my gosh, what do we do? A discipline issue would show up, and I didn't have a method to approach conflict resolution or coach for better behaviors other than that tried and tested and failed, from my perspective at least, rewards and punishment thing. So I became a student of conflict resolution. I'd also gone to law school, so I had a natural interest in that. And I just became passionate about communication in families and ecosystems and developing ways to create change in behavior without doing it and paying such a high price for it, which you do. You pay a high price when you use a heavy hand that makes someone feel ashamed of their behavior rather than it's a teachable moment. Right.
So how you developed this method over a few years, I gather, and tell us about it.
Yeah, it's actually over decades. So I started with Dr. Thomas Gordon parent effectiveness training and became, I found that course and took it over and over and over again and finally became actually a trainer for them. And then I studied with Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of the Center for Nonviolent Communication and the father of restorative justice in American prison systems. And I sat at his feet and just took every word in and made it just became my passion.
So his name was John Rosenberg?
No, it's Dr. Marshall Rosenberg.
Marshall Rosenberg, okay. And what kind of doctor is he?
He is a doctor of psychology. He was the founder of the Center for Nonviolent Communication, CNVC.
Okay, that's great. And he's a psychologist. He's a PhD.
He is, yeah.
Marshall Rosenberg. I'll have to look him up. Restorative justice.
Oh, totally. Restorative justice in the American prison system was all because of Marshall.
Wow. So what brought you to him?
Oh, life is such a, you meet somebody, and I was at a conference in Brisbane And I was there with the Effectiveness Training Institute of Australia, who I'd received some certifications to train under their banner. And there was a conference, and the woman speaking at the conference was the author of a book called Children Are People Too. Her name is Dr. Louise Porter, and she was the keynote. And I literally hung on every word that came out of her mouth. And I strategically positioned myself at the dinner I got to sit next to her. And it was the beginning of a lifelong friendship. And she gave me her book, and she and I began a conversation because she had some ways of looking at communication that were different than Gordon. And I wrote to her after reading her book and said, wow, this is, are you sure about this? And she said, I'm pretty sure, but I'm happy to, have a discourse. So that became a really interesting, we became pen pals looking at some of the techniques around communication and connection. And the thing that she brought to my attention that was so powerful is that when you say to anyone, I feel so upset when you don't clean up the kitchen, that there's a lot of blame that the feeling that I'm experiencing was because of their action. And we all know other people don't make us feel the way we do, that we can't blame other people for our feelings. And so it opened my mind to how deeply embedded, and it was actually something that I guess became much more nuanced for my own ability to communicate honestly and not blame other people for the feelings that were coming up in me, but yet to want to talk about their behavior. So this just took me to a whole nother level. And she introduced, she came to Hong Kong. I brought her there as an expert speaker at my children's school. And she saw that I had a book called Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life, which I had gotten at that event, that conference where I'd met her. And she said, have you read it? And I said, I haven't yet. Oh, that was the best book I read last year. So I feverishly read it and fell in love with yet another gem. And the gem in that moment was that I chose how I heard you. I get to choose how I hear you, not just I get to choose how I communicate, but I get to also choose how I hear what's being communicated. And that just opened my mind that I actually have a choice about how I hear other people. And, all of this in the end, over many, 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 many years, eventually Louise and I created a program together with another colleague that I had been teaching with at the time. And that's the course that I've been running now for 12 years.
And it's called Conscious Parenting?
It is. It's the guidance approach to parenting. And it is part of this conscious parenting revolution that I'm it's become sort of my reason to, get up every day and make a contribution, is that families hurt and misunderstandings create breakdowns. And the people we care the most about, sometimes we find ourselves in such a difficult position. We're not connected. We don't have the warmth that we wish we had, or that we had when they were maybe little. And somehow it's been lost along the way. And I know it breaks people's hearts.
Yeah, no, it does. If people want to read about it, learn about it, where would a listener go to learn about this? Is there a website?
Yeah, consciousparentingrevolution.com is the website. And I have a free ebook, which people can take and digest, and it has strategies. And I have blogs as well that people can just enjoy. Every week I put a new blog up, and it just starts the healing process. Everybody wants healing, and they want to create that connection that just, makes all the difference. It's why we have children. It's to have that beautiful, deep connection where we feel so much a part of each other's lives.
So the people who would go are people who are having conflict in the family and they're drifted away from their children, something like that?
That's one, I have a whole variety of clients, if you will. There's everything from my kids are really young and I don't want to get it wrong. Right. And so I'm looking for, some support. It's like it's one of the only things in the world that we do without training, if you will.
Right.
The biggest job on the planet is parenting. And so very few people actually go in prepared. And accidentally, they develop resentment flows. So retaliation, rebellion, and resistance, it's called the 3 R's. And they are what happens in relationships. And if you can start by not creating the 3 R's and the resentment flows, wonderful. And if you've done it and you didn't even realize it was because of the way that you were parenting, and you thought that you just had kids that were disrespectful or didn't pay attention or never listened to you or didn't cooperate, then it might actually not be about them. It could be that they're in reaction. And you can change the whole thing, by changing how you're approaching conflict resolution.
So you used a term that I've never heard before. What's a resentment flow?
A resentment flow is also a secondary problem. So let's take a simple example where you're asking a young child to pick up their toys and help you clean the table off to get set for dinner. And they ignore you. And you ask them again, and they ignore you. And then you start saying things like, if you don't do as I've asked, no dessert. And they say something like, I don't even like that stupid dessert. And then you say, all right, if you don't help me out, no TV. And you just keep upping it. Right. And it finally ends with them running upstairs, slamming the door and saying, I hate you, Daddy.
Right.
Or I hate you, Mommy. That's a resentment flow.
That's a resentment flow. Why don't you just call it an argument?
Because, I guess you could call it an argument. The resentment is that it starts to damage the relationship because they're resentful of the way that you spoke to them. And you're resentful of the lack of communication or the lack of support or the lack of harmony or the lack of them doing what you wanted them to do.
So is there something specific about a resentment flow that distinguishes it from an argument?
Well, I think the key here is whether it stays past that moment. If it stays beyond, like, we just had a disagreement, everything is fine. But when they run upstairs and slam the door and say, I hate you, and then you impose the punishment that you said you were going to do, no TV for a week.
Right.
Then not only do they hate you in the moment, but it goes on and on and on. And ultimately, the thing was about getting the table tidied. Right. And now we're so far away from what's called the primary issue. And everything is now about the secondary issue, which is how I feel about my mom or dad, because they don't get me. And all they ever do is, demand that I do this, demand that I do that. And they never see it from my side. They don't even understand me. It's a breakdown.
Walk us through that scene, doing it the way a conscious parent who'd done the revolution. Yeah. How would she do it?
Okay. So when a child says no to you, a conscious parent looks at the no as a yes to something inside of themselves. So I get curious about when they're saying no to me and not doing as I was hoping that they would do. Why are they doing that? What's going on inside of them that's getting in the way of them doing what I was hoping that they would do? So I then shift from repeating my side over and over and over again, what I want. And I shift to wondering about what's going on for them. So it would go something like this. My daughter's name is Pia. Pia, it seems like you're really involved in something on this table with all your toys. And I was hoping that it could tidy it up. But because I see that you're really into this and you can't even take my side into consideration, I'm wondering, are you worried that the way you've got it set up right now, if we move it, is going to wreck your game? And then I would probably get, yeah, I mean, I've got everything set up just the way I want it. And if we move it, it ruins my game. Oh, I see. So you're trying to figure out how to do what you want to do, and you can't figure out how to do that and also do what I want you to do. No, Mom, it's like you always get your way and I never get mine. Oh, I see. So you just feel like I just want you to do what I want you to do. And I'm not ever thinking about what's important to you. Right. You just want me to do what you want. Oh, okay. Well, actually, that's not what I want. I want your needs to be met and my needs to be met. What do you think we can do so that both of our needs could be met here? I don't know. I don't have any idea. What do you think I could do? I don't know, Mom. What do you think? Well, I mean, I have a couple of ideas. If I, take a picture and we move everything and then set it up, we could use the picture to help us figure out what to, and how to set it up. That's one thought. What do you think about that? Well, I guess we could do that. Or, there's that cardboard box in the garage. Maybe we could just place everything in the box and then I could just move it around the house. Well, that would work too. And then we just kind of go into problem solving. So we stay on the issue at hand, which is that I just wanted to get the table cleared. And the resistance to that wasn't disobedient or disrespectful or any of those kind of things. It was someone not being able to figure out how to meet their needs and my needs at the same time. Mm-hmm. So children are people too. And if we begin to look at resistance as not as defiance, but as there's something in them that is getting in the way or blocking their ability to cooperate. And as long as there are no built up resentment flows, it's as simple as they can't figure out how to meet my needs and their needs at the same time. And so it's really easy for us to figure out ways to problem solve collaboratively.
I just have such a inner bristle to jargon, but okay, I'll go with resentment flows.
It's interesting that's Thomas Gordon was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize 3 times based on his research regarding resentment flows. And so what Gordon discovered is that when you use a controlling form of discipline and you demand that a child do something and then you punish if they don't, what you generate is a resentment flow. And that appears as retaliation, rebellion, and resistance. So the 3 R's and the research around that is what gave him the nomination.
Yeah, I get it. And it's brilliant and it's wonderful. I just hate jargon. So, but resentment flow, fine. He's introduced the term and used it eloquently. I'd never heard it before. And I always balk at jargon. I always say, why not just put it in plain English? But I think we can all identify with the resentment flow, know what it is, and certainly work around it. Okay, for the past 3 months, I've been taking a new supplement called Omega Bright CBD. And listeners know that Bright is spelled B-R-I-T-E. So it's Omega, B-R-I-T-E, CBD. As I've mentioned before, Omega Bright CBD was created by my good friend, Dr. Carol Locke, graduate of Harvard Medical School, and her company, Omega Bright Wellness. They've been making the #1 omega-3 supplements for the past 20 years. Well, Carol and her team decided to break new ground, having set the standard for purity, safety, and efficacy in the world of omega-3s, and they've brought that same commitment to excellence to their new CBD supplement. I take it myself. It helps me with my reactivity, my impatience. It kind of just puts a smoother edge. In no way is it a buzz or a high, anything like that. It's way more subtle. But it's a very noticeable, subtle effect, and one that I've come to really appreciate as I take it every day. So, all right, get Omega Bright CBD online at omegabrightwellness.com. And now Distraction listeners can save 20% on their first order by using the promo code PODCAST2020. That's PODCAST2020. Go to omegabrightwellness.com and order Omega Bright CBD. You'll be glad you did, just as I am. What you're saying reminds me a little bit of Ross Greene and collaborative problem solving. Do you think there's an overlap there or not?
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's so many collaborative problem solving models.
Yeah.
Yeah. The spirit is very much the same.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wonderful. It's really wonderful. And you teach, you have courses on it, or how does it work?
Yeah, I do have courses. I'm in a course right now, and I've literally taught thousands of people over decades, where up until now, I would be running courses in schools to parent communities in person. And with the sort of advent of the new world, I've just transitioned to doing this online, and I have a group that I'm taking through the process now, and I have another group starting September 28th.
And how long does it take? If a listener said, "Boy, I really want to learn how to do this. It sounds so, freeing. Get me out of struggles with my kids." What would they do? They'd sign up.
They can sign up. My initial course is a 90-day parenting reset. And so over the course of 3 months, we do a coaching call every week that I do online with my group. And then every week I also give them pre-recorded sort of lesson with worksheets for them to not just understand it conceptually, but begin to land it in the way they're changing and shifting their behavior. So it's a period of 3 months where we begin to actually take on the underlying beliefs that get in the way of looking at children as people too. So there's some shifts that have to happen around our beliefs about children should be obedient and compliant. They should do as they're told. There's something actually around parents not generally looking as their children's right for autonomy, for example, should be honored because they're children and they have no right to autonomy. But actually everyone has the need for autonomy, including children. So some of our beliefs about children are getting in the way of actually truly being with them like we would any other human being.
Yeah, no, indeed. Having raised 3 of them, early on we treated them as autonomous beings, and they were wonderful. They're 3 very happy adults now. In fact, beautiful. Similar to you, when we started having kids, I realized here I am a Harvard-trained child psychiatrist, and I know nothing about how to raise children, and particularly about how to instill joy. I knew I was an expert on misery. I knew a lot about misery, but I didn't know much about how to instill joy. So I did research, and I wrote a book called The Childhood Roots of Adult Happiness. And of my 20 books, it's my favorite one. It really wow. And it's the manual that we use to raising our kids, the Childhood Roots of Adult Happiness. And you're so right. I mean, how you treat them really matters. And to get into what you call resentment flow, I just call the big struggle. In so many families, they just live in the big struggle, and it's damaging on both sides. So if someone wanted to take your course, they go to consciousparentingrevolution.com.
Yes, they do. And actually, I think I had it in the show notes, or I spoke to Sarah about it, that I would give your audience a 20% discount nice. So that there's, some appreciation to you for having me on, and that they get to benefit.
And what is the fee?
The fee is $497. And so a 20% discount, I think, puts it at $397 or something like that.
Something like that.
And it's for the 12-week course, and it's truly amazing value. So, it's really a lot of hands-on support over the course of 12 weeks, and the gems from my own experience over 20 years, starting at the beginning. Really, it's been longer than that because our son is 25 and he was 2 when I started down the journey of recognizing that how I'm being with regard to sorting out problems, mediation, working together with one soul to another in moving forward to resolve an issue. It's no different with children than it is with adults. And if I have demand language, I'm going to activate the 3 R's. If I have consideration for their needs and I model it, then they are naturally considerate of my needs.
Right.
And it's just about modeling.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful concept. So, and if they sign up for the course, it'll be online. And how many others are in the course?
I have a group right now of 17. So it's a very intimate group. And it allows for everybody to learn on Monday when the module is dropped in, and they can listen to it as often as they want. A lot of the information, it's the first time they've heard about. I do a whole unit on self-esteem, for example, and how we have probably grown up where our worth has somehow been confused with our competence. and breaking that so that children have a sense of feeling worthy, whether they're good at baseball, whether they excel at tennis, whether they got an A on the test, delinking competence from self-worth. And, just all these ways in which we accidentally, and I do think it's accidental. No one intends to link someone's competence to their worthiness. And yet when we're trying to get our kids to be capable and competent, that message somehow does get communicated that they love me if I'm good at this and they're not so happy with me if I'm not. And my love and belonging is linked somehow to my capacity to be good at chemistry or excel at biology or be a star on the tennis team.
How do you break that? How do you
break that?
Yeah.
Well, you create the ecosystem in your family where the sense of love and belonging, I love you, warts and all. I love you. You have to be intentional about it. You have to be languaging, my love for you. It doesn't matter. And also break the habit of rewarding the wanted behaviors, because we can't just give let's go out and celebrate and have an ice cream only if they do the level of performance that we wanted. Let's go out and have an ice cream if you failed, because I just want to be with you and let you know that I know how hard this is and how disappointing. And I can imagine this is a real struggle for you right now. And, let's go do something that's enjoyable and fun together, and let's have a chuckle and a laugh over it. Let's be there for our kids in all the ways that we think when we're behavioralists that we only reward the behaviors that we want so we get more of them. Let's break out of that mold completely and stop treating our children like they're dogs. And we just give them a treat when they're good so we get more good behavior, and we give them a little smack on the bottom when they're bad so that they never do that again. That whole world doesn't work.
Right. No, of course it doesn't. And how do you counter the messages that society puts out that you're only as good as your most recent triumph?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you have to be intentional. You have to be intentional, and you have to have the conversations at the dinner table, and you have to have the conversations in the car, and you have to have the conversations every time you see their little faces sink, because they are in the world of external locus of causality. They're out there comparing themselves to others. They're out there thinking that if little Johnny next door is better at this than I am, then somehow they're more worthy than me. So it has to be languaged. It can't just be assumed. We have to know how to sit down with our children and say, I can see you're really upset and that it's hard for you to celebrate with other people's successes, because somehow we don't know where the languaging came and the message was delivered, that you look to other people to determine whether you're worthy or not. We need to stop that. In our family, we're going to put up big signs that say it's acceptable to fail here. We're going to put up big signs that say if you didn't make a mistake, you're not learning. We're going to try to overcome the messaging of society every single turn of the corner so that the children in our family know that it's not about that, and that this is not whether, they do well or not. It's that no matter how they do, how are we with each other, and how are you with yourself?
It's like the line from the poem "If" that's it's written on the tunnel heading to the center court at Wimbledon. It goes, if you can look at triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same.
Beautiful.
And I think
gives me chills.
Yeah, I mean it's a wonderful lesson to learn young. I've always said to my kids, it's the love of the game. The victories and the defeats are part of the game. And so as long as you love the game, you win. That's the victory in life, is finding a love of the game. And, and what you're saying, these poor kids think they're worthless if they're not number one, and I call it the great Harvard fallacy, that if I can get into Harvard, then I've got it made. And if I don't, then I'm second rate. And, the kind of, just what you're saying. And I think you're so right. You have to consciously and deliberately oppose that, because society is sending out, constant messages of you're only as good as your your
GPA.
latest, yeah, exactly. And
it's heartbreaking. I mean, it's so heartbreaking, as you and I both know. In Hong Kong, it has the largest or the highest suicide rate among young women in the world.
Oh boy.
And there's so much pressure on these kids
that
if they don't, it's a very, I'm going to call it, I hope I don't get in trouble, draconian educational style. And it's very much achievement oriented. It doesn't celebrate all kinds of brains. It just celebrates a very linear, sequential, achieving, scientific brain. And for the creative, child that thinks out of the box and doesn't fit into that mold and is definitely not going to do well in that system, there's a sense of them being made to believe that they're not as good as other people, that there's something wrong. And not only that, they're losing face for the whole family. It's bringing shame to the whole clan.
Yeah, and they're my ADD guys, and they're going to change the world for the better if they're not broken through the educational system.
Yeah.
It's and the Chinese are catching on. They want us to come over and teach them divergent thinking. They want us to come over and teach them creativity, and they don't realize that their regimented system literally beats the creativity out of these kids.
I went to teach at Hangzhou University in 1983. And I was young. I just graduated, and I get to Hangzhou, and they say to me, what we really want you to do is teach them how to think.
Exactly.
And I thought, wow, I don't even know where to begin. And that's such a part of the American education in so many ways. I think it may still be one of the strengths is there's a round table where you do a lot of just conversation and thinking and brainstorming. And that is a really beautiful way to just open your mind to possibilities.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I went to high school at a school called Exeter in New Hampshire, and it was a boarding school, and all of the classes were taught at round tables, and it was all Socratic. So it was all about open-ended questions, and so you were always imaginatively engaged. It's the opposite of drilling and memorizing, and and I saw the value of this. I consulted for a few years to the Harvard chemistry department because they had a bunch of suicides there. And one of the things I learned during my time there, they get the best applicants from around the world. They have 5 Nobel Prize winners on the faculty. So and every year a new crop, and it's a big department, over 1,000 postdocs and graduate students. And every year a new crop arrives in Cambridge, and the mandate is go into the lab and discover new knowledge. Well, one group runs into the lab, just eager to mix chemicals and blow up the building, but the other group freezes up and says, no, you've got to tell me what to do. I'll do anything you want. I'll run your experiments all night if you want me to, but you have to tell me what to do. And that's the group that basically had their imagination snuffed out back around 5th grade when they got the message that do exactly what you're told. And if you do that, then you will succeed. And it's just tragic because what you really need in life, as you know as well as I do, is the ability to take initiative, is the ability to come up with new ideas, is the ability to, I call it, play, and this doctrinaire system just doesn't allow for that, does it?
It's just so sad. And I hear you so deeply that it's truly this mind-boggling turning of the ship, turning of the Titanic, and moving into territory where it's not as measurable.
Yeah.
And therefore it's scary. And there's also some reality check around children and their brilliance isn't because of, I don't know. I mean, I have no research for this. It's not because of learning the 3, reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Right.
It's opening up the mind to allow for the access to that big magic where all of it is out there for discovery. And the more we're free to make mistakes, the more we're free to discover and create. And this is, to me, what gets me so excited is to find the ones that are willing to risk.
Yes. You have to be given permission. You have to know that it's safe to fail.
Yep.
The success is made of failure, as you know. And if you're not failing, you're not trying anything new.
Absolutely. Marshall used to say, until your children know that they can say no to you,
right,
then they can't say yes.
Yeah, it's so true. And mean it, exactly.
And mean it.
Yeah.
That there's actually the fabric, the ecosystem that's been created in the family system that allows for you to say no. Right. And, I even extend that a little bit further to the school systems, where if you have that authoritarian model again, there's only one thing that you get to say, and that is, sure, okay, I'll do what you tell me to. And
yes,
this,
sir.
again,
Exactly.
gets in the way of that beautiful autonomous aspect and nature to the human being, even the young ones,
right,
where they have within themselves some dignity. I remember there was a kid that I got to work with for a while, and he was just always in trouble. And it was a very prestigious Hong Kong family going to the best school. And every day they would walk into the classroom and he was told, now take off your backpack and hang it over here on the hook and be sure to get that book out and put it on your table.
Right.
And he wouldn't do any of it. And he was just so in reaction to all of this control.
Yes.
And he would just say to me, if they're going to treat me like a baby, I'm going to act like one.
Good for
as
you.
if I don't know, he says to me, as if I don't know where to hang my bag. And it's as if I don't know to take the book out. I mean, seriously. And I just thought, part of me was just like the Dead Poets Society. I wanted him to stand on a chair and just go, yeah.
Exactly. Good for you.
And the parents said to me, what's wrong with him? And I said, there's nothing wrong with him, but there's something wrong with the school you have him in.
Exactly.
Wasn't what they wanted to hear because, it was the prestigious school and la, la, la. And I was just like, make choices.
Yeah. Do you want a child who will be a person who can take initiative and use his imagination, or do you want a robot?
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, what's going on in Hong Kong right now. I mean, really, just the robot will be fine.
Right. Well, Katherine, you are wonderful. You really are. I can't thank you enough for coming on. And
this has been so fun. Thank you so much.
I want to say it again, Katherine Winter-Sellery, and her website is consciousparentingrevolution.com. You can get her free ebook there, 7 Strategies to Keep Your Relationship with Your Kids from Hitting the Boiling Point. And I can tell you for sure, just talking to her in this interview, she's spot on. She knows what she's doing. She's been trained by the best people, and she's been a serious student, and she's got decades of experience. And my gosh, it's a deal to take her course. If you're a parent and if you're having some struggles, as most parents do, there is a rational way out of it that'll be good for both of you, not just your kids, but for you, because you don't like struggling with your kids any more than your kids like it. And if you're not careful, it takes on a life of its own. And as Katherine says, it becomes part of your culture, part of your family culture. And you don't want that. The good news is you can change it. You have to be deliberate, but you can change it. And she will show you how. And I can tell I'm looking at her picture now and hearing her, she'll tell you how in a very warm and helpful way. She's not going to sit there and tell you what to do, but she'll suggest what you might do, and there's a big difference. There's a big difference there. So go to consciousparentingrevolution.com, get the free ebook, sign up for the course with a 20% discount. And my gosh, that's so modestly priced. I mean, if I were a parent, I'd take advantage of it right away. And the next course starts September 28th, you said.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Wonderful.
And it is. It's priced for access so that, I'm about the revolution.
Yeah,
I'm about giving parents the skills that they need to change their family systems if they need to. If there's resentment, clean it up. And to also be able to go back to that school and say, I'm actually not okay with this approach. Would you be willing to hear me out? Yeah. Not in an aggressive way, because that doesn't get us anywhere, but in a really sort of open-hearted, I'm in discovery. Would you go down the road with me?
Yeah. Wouldn't you like to learn something new?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just that, Mr. Rogers' neighborhood kind of thing.
Exactly.
It really is about supporting everybody in learning how to manage their emotions. And when kids are under, threat and they can't meet their needs and they're falling apart, I call it drowning. Yeah. And they don't know how to drown politely, just like the rest of us. So let's not get so hung up on how people drown. And let's get really connected to what the needs are that they're not able to meet underneath it. And if we start to meet the needs, all the behaviors that we didn't like disappear anyway. So let's start with the heart. So
they can swim. Mm-hmm. Okay, Katherine Winter-Sellery, thank you for welcoming us to your neighborhood. It's
so really lovely. It's just been really beautiful to be here with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And please, again, go to consciousparentingrevolution.com, sign up for her course, get her free ebook. And remember to reach out to us with your questions, comments, and show ideas. We thrive on them. We love them. We eat them up, and we turn them into shows of their own. So write an email or record a voice memo on your phone and send it to connect@distractionpodcast.com. That's connect@distractionpodcast.com. Distraction is created by Sounds Great Media. Our recording engineer and editor is the amazingly talented Scott Persson, and our producer is the also amazingly talented Sarah Guertin. I am Dr. Ned Hallowell saying goodbye for now. The episode you just heard was sponsored by Omega Bright CBD. Formulated by Omega Bright Wellness, creators of the #1 omega-3 supplements for the past 20 years. Omega Bright CBD, safe, third-party tested, and it works. Shop online at omegabrightwellness.com.